morning. I'm Charles Kuralt, and this is Sunday Morning. Nearly 30 years ago, after a play opened on Broadway, James Baldwin wrote, "Never before in the entire history of American theater has so much of the truth of black people's lives been seen on stage." On April 1st in Los Angeles, they're going to revive that play, an event important enough, we thought, to warrant special attention by Bill Whitaker. For the play, A Raisin in the Sun, is a masterpiece of dreams.
It's important to him, and I'm going to help him. Gonna put on a show for the man, Mama.
A Raisin in the Sun is the first play by a black woman ever produced on Broadway. That was almost 30 years ago, and since then, the play has rarely been off the boards. This month, there are no fewer than 10 amateur productions being produced everywhere from Cape Cod to Key West, and there's also a major professional revival touring the country. Lorraine Hansberry, the author of Raisin, died of cancer in 1965, yet her play lives on and on. We'll see why later on Sunday Morning.
Billy Taylor will be along later to tell us about Gap Mangione and Chuck Mangione, the Jazz Brothers. Bob Pierpoint has good news about programs to help babies struggling for life around the beginning.
Sunday Morning visited this Miami Valley hospital in Dayton, Ohio in 1979 to report on a special unit that treats premature or very sick babies. 7 years later, we've come back for a new look at the neonatal intensive care unit here. More infants than ever are now being saved by the advanced technology, the skilled people, and the loving care the babies get. A story we'll report later on this Sunday Morning.
Ron Powers will be along with a sneak preview of that much ballyhooed television miniseries, America with a K. We'll talk to Bob Simon in Tel Aviv and Bill McLaughlin at the State Department about relations between Israel and the United States, relations which have been under some strain lately as both countries try to figure out how best to deal with terrorism. We'll look at some wonderful, bright, and fanciful paintings by two black women folk artists, and we'll review the news of the week. Here are the headlines for Sunday Morning, the 15th of February. The New York Times reports this morning that the Iran-Contra arms deals grew out of a secret White House program called Project Democracy, a program that was started at least 4 years ago to help democratic causes around the world. The director of the operation, according to the Times report, was former National Security Council aide Oliver North. It's cold in most parts of the country this morning, especially in the east. 1 degree in Boston, 10 below in Albany, 6 degrees in New York City. In Alpena, Michigan, 17 below. And in East Haven, Vermont, the thermometer read 34 below last night. People won't be hearing the news from Lake Wobegon on the radio on Saturday nights after June. Garrison Keillor announced that he will leave Prairie Home Companion, the weekly radio program. He has broadcast live from the World Theater in St. Paul for 13 years. Garrison Keillor says he wants to resume the life of a shy person. Happens to a dream deferred. Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? A few years later, a young black woman named Lorraine Hansberry borrowed one of those Langston Hughes phrases and made it the title of a play. As Bill Whitaker reports now, A Raisin in the Sun is still a masterpiece of dreams.
I'm waiting to see you look like your daddy and say we done give up one baby to poverty and we ain't gonna now give up another.
28 years after it first lit up Broadway, A Raisin in the Sun lives in an amateur production in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
You are a disgrace to your father's memory.
It's a professional revival starring Esther Roll playing to sold-out crowds across the country.
In my mother's house, there is still God.
A Raisin in the Sun has been produced around the world, from Czechoslovakia to Saudi Arabia. And each year, no fewer than 50 productions are staged throughout the United States. A Raisin in the Sun has been made into a movie.
Eat your eggs, you're gonna be cold.
A man say to his woman, I got me a dream. She says, eat your eggs, they getting cold. Man say to his woman, help me now to take a hole in this world somehow, and she says, eat your eggs and go to work.
Eat my eggs.
And adapted into a musical.
Man say, I got me a dream. A woman say, pass the cream.
Seems like God didn't see fit to give the black man nothing but dreams.
The play, by Lorraine Hansberry, is about the Youngers, a poor black family from the south side of Chicago, struggling to reach divergent dreams. Walter Lee dreams of material success.
And I go up the steps to the house, and the gardener, he'll be clipping away at the hedges. And he'll say, good evening, Mr. Younger. And I'll say, hello, Jefferson, how are you this evening?
His sister Benitha dreams of becoming a doctor.
But first I'm going to be a doctor. Now, George, for one, he still thinks that's pretty funny. I couldn't be bothered with that. I'm going to be a doctor. And everybody around here better understand that.
Ruth wants to keep her family together.
Well, who's a little angry man at you?
Oh, golly, Mama.
Oh, golly, Mama.
And Mother Lena dreams of a home.
Folks, now, I don't want to make it sound fancier than it is. It's just a plain little old house, but it's built good and solid.
I tell you, I'm a man. I say I want her to wear it, you hear me?
The clash of those dreams almost tears the family apart.
I feel fine. Maybe I'll get down on my black knees. All right, Mr. Charlie. All right, Mr. Great White Father. You just give us that money, and we won't come out there and dirty up your white folks' neighborhood. And I'll feel fine. Fine. Fine.
He's a real nice kid.
But they survive and go off at the end of the play to a new home, but an uncertain future in a hostile white neighborhood. A Raisin in the Sun still has the power to stir.
There are not many plays where at every performance, at the end of the play, the audience stands up in a standing ovation. There has very rarely ever been a performance of A Raisin in the Sun in all of these years that I have ever witnessed where this didn't happen.
Theater producer Robert Nemiroff was married to Lorraine Hansberry when she wrote A Raisin in the Sun.
Well, opening night was a night, of course, I will never forget. It was an incredible experience. The whole audience was standing, the cast was standing on stage, some of them in tears, really applauding the audience. A lot of people were crying in that audience because they had had an experience in the theater which brought them very close to the human spirit. And then people started shouting, Arthur, 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 and Sidney Poitier was on the stage, and he held out his hands, and Lorraine went down the aisle, and he jumped down and lifted her up onto the stage, and the house went crazy.
Whoever thought? What was more exciting was to come a couple of days later and see those great reviews in all these spaces here.
It was the smash Broadway hit of 1959, chosen best play by the New York drama critics, upstaging plays by Tennessee Williams and Eugene O'Neill. Lorraine Hansberry became the first black and at 26, the youngest playwright ever to win that honor.
Well, we were often struck with the fact that as theatergoers, it seemed to us we had the most responsive, spectacularly so, audiences that I'd seen in a long time in the Broadway theater, where people literally were almost talking to the actors.
Lorraine Hansberry grew up here in the black south side of Chicago, where she knew many